Good morning, Kuhner country. Here we go again, my friends. Here we go again. So, here is now the absolute latest. As many of you know, because it's back in the news again, we are now facing not so much the United States, fingers crossed. So far, Central Africa, increasingly now they're worried about other parts of the world, an absolutely deadly outbreak of Ebola. Ebola is one of the most severe, fatal viruses you can possibly contract. There is no, or at least for this latest strain, which is very deadly, there is no vaccine for the latest strain. None whatsoever. There are very few therapeutics. Basically, if you catch it, you are going to suffer tremendously. It is excruciatingly painful. You bleed from your eyes. You bleed from your nose. Blood starts coming out of your skin. It is one of the most horrible viruses you can possibly contract on the face of the earth. And in many cases, not all, some do survive, but in many cases, it is absolutely fatal. And so what is now taking place is that the World Health Organization, the WHO, has now declared an international public health emergency. Starting in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they now say that there are at least 131 people dead, over 530 known cases. That number, they believe, is going to start to grow into the thousands and thousands. It has now spread across the border into Uganda, where some people have already now died from Ebola. And it is also now spreading into South Sudan. Now, many of you are going to be saying, Jeff, okay, I feel bad for the people who are suffering from Ebola and who have died from Ebola, but this is all the way in Central Africa. What does this have to do with the United States, President Trump, the November election, the World Cup that we're going to be hosting in a couple of weeks here in the United States? That's way over there. The problem is that you now have people who are starting to fly into Europe. They are trying to come into the United States, who we now know were in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, were in Uganda and South Sudan, in those areas that were affected. And so the fear is that now they could start bringing this virus into other countries, into Europe, into the West, and yes, into America. Now, the Trump administration is taking very proactive measures to try to deal with it. I'm going to get to that in a second. But first, I want you to listen now to Imeri Niati. Hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She is a disaster risk coordinator for the International Federation of the Red Cross. And here is what she said on CBS about this now outbreak of Ebola, first in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but it is spreading now into neighboring countries. Roll cut 1, Mike.
Today, let me leave you with a few.
Sorry, Mike. My bad. Roll cut 30. That was my mistake, Mike. Roll cut 30.
The situation is getting out of hand. DRC declared their 17th Ebola outbreak on the 15th, and we were talking about 250 suspected cases on the 15th and about 80 deaths. These numbers have doubled up as I'm speaking right now, which makes this outbreak a bit complex, given that definitely it's a rare strain and there is no approved vaccine or treatment whatsoever.
That's what's scary, is that there is no vaccine for it. It's, you get it and you're in trouble. I mean, you're in real trouble. Those numbers have now grown. He mentioned 80 deaths. We're at 131. They suspect many more are coming. Now, listen to Imeri Niati again, saying the situation on the ground it's evolving. It's evolving quickly. It's spreading. And they don't have proper quarantine containment measures in place. Roll cut 2, Mike.
Second, at this pivotal time of transformation.
Sorry, Mike. Roll cut 30A. My bad. Roll cut 30A.
On the ground, I would say the situation is evolving extremely quickly, and we are seeing quite a lot of suspected cases. And of course, there is loss of life. My organization, the IFRC, together with the DRC Red Cross, is involved on the ground. And we are actually working on, we have already mobilized about 300 volunteers.
So anyway, they're doing everything they can. The State Department now is sending millions of dollars in aid to try to contain this in Africa. President Trump has been briefed on this. Now, just so that you know, we have placed restrictions in place for travel restrictions to all non-U.S. passports, coming from that region or having traveled through that region. So anybody who has been to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, South Sudan, those affected areas are not allowed to enter the United States if they're not American citizens. All non-U.S. passport holders for 30 days are now restricted from coming in. Americans who have gone to that area are being aggressively screened to make sure that they are not infected. Now, tragically, we have now at least one known American who has contracted Ebola. He is a doctor, Peter Stafford. He and his wife, Peter and Rebecca Stafford, are Christian missionaries. They have been living in Central Africa for about the last 7 years. In many ways, they're very heroic, decent, compassionate people. They are there to treat the poor in Africa, the sick in Africa. It is a calling for them. As I said, they're Christian missionaries. However, in treating people with Ebola, even though these doctors have had these hazmat suits, and that's the only way to treat them. They literally have these gloves and these hazmat suits. It's almost like they're entering a nuclear power plant. Peter Stafford, or Dr. Stafford, has come down with Ebola. Now, they are not going to fly him into the United States for all kinds of the risks that this could entail. They are flying him, or have flown him, into a containment center in Germany, which apparently is one of the world's, this center is one of the world's leading areas or expert areas in treating people with very deadly infectious diseases. But now we have an American who has contracted it. His wife was with him when they were treating Ebola patients. She is also in Germany in quarantine. So we now have an American. The question now is, what more can Trump do? What more should Trump do? Listen now to President Trump. He was at a recent event touting his website to lower prescription drugs, and a reporter asked him about should Americans be concerned about Ebola. Roll cut 32, Mike.
Go ahead, Ebola. Ebola, you said Ebola.
Should Americans be concerned about Ebola?
Yeah, I'm concerned about everything, but certainly am. I think that, it's been confined right now to Africa, but it's something that has had a breakout.
That's the thing. It's had a breakout. Now, we have to make sure it doesn't come into the United States. This is now my question. The media is talking about Ebola increasingly. It's now story after story after story. And I'm asking myself, and I'm asking all of you, are they fear-mongering? Are they trying to scare Americans again? Or, because we've seen this movie before, and we would be foolish if we didn't at least confront it and ask the question, do they want to bring in another deadly pandemic into the United States just several months before a pivotal election, which then would force a massive lockdown and, of course, mail-in voting, which would guarantee then that voter fraud would take place? Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. That's all you're now seeing in the media. It is absolutely everywhere, both in the world media, here in the United States, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MS Now, obviously the Iran war. Obviously, that's a big issue. But besides that, it's story after story about the outbreak of Ebola in Central Africa, and now the fear that it may enter the United States. And so my question to you, are we just seeing more fear-mongering on the part of the media? Or, and this is my fear if you want to know the truth, are they laying the groundwork to do basically COVID redux, to allow or cause a pathogen, a deadly pathogen, a virus, to come into the United States just before an election and, cause a pandemic, and then we've got to lock the country down again and have mail-in balloting again so that the globalists can steal the election or sabotage Trump in November. Now, the World Health Organization, which to me is a joke, they desperately tried to do this during COVID. They were the ones supporting Fauci and urging Chinese-style lockdowns all over the world, in the United States, in Canada, across Europe, in China, across Asia. Well, the World Health Organization, led by their leader, the chair, whatever, the director, Tedros is how people refer to him, Tedros. Tedros now has come out and declared Ebola a global public health emergency. And according to him, he now says that Ebola is spreading faster and further than initially expected. And he says he now fears that this is no longer contained. This is his words, not mine, that it is spreading from the Democratic Republic of the Congo into neighboring countries. And he says eventually this could go into Europe and into the United States. This is now what they're claiming. President Trump, as I said, has been taking some action to prevent this and put on restrictions on people traveling from Central Africa or that part of the world. Now, I want you to listen very carefully. This is the deputy director for the White House Domestic Policy Council. Her name is Heidi Overton, and she is really the point person now on how to deal with Ebola on behalf of President Trump and the Trump administration. She says there is an American now who has contracted this very virulent strain of Ebola. It is deadly. You have something like it's a 75% kill rate. It is very high. You suffer severe agonizing pain. And if you survive, you are very lucky. You will never be the same again. But in most cases, it's a death sentence. And this person is what I mentioned before, Peter Stafford, Dr. Peter Stafford, a Christian missionary who was treating poor people or sick people in Central Africa. He was treating people with Ebola, even though he had a hazmat suit on. Somehow he still contracted it. And now he's fighting for his very life in Germany. They didn't want to fly him to the United States. They flew him to this top-notch medical center in Germany. And that's where he is being taken care of and quarantined right now as I speak. Roll cut 32A, Mike.
There is an American that is symptomatic and has tested positive for it's the Bundibuja virus, a strain of Ebola. That American, as well as 6 other high-risk contacts, are going to be taken out of that region and taken to Germany. We want to thank our German counterparts. That is an internationally recognized location for viral hemorrhagic fever treatments. So we're very grateful that they would take them. It's a significantly shorter flight time for Americans to receive treatment there in Germany.
And yes, and let's be honest, I'm telling you, they don't want to bring them into the United States. And they've got other people, Americans, who also were in contact with Ebola. So far, they have tested negative, not positive, but they're very, very worried that, they let them out, and then they take a plane, they come to the United States, and a week or so down the road, or 10 days later, they start showing symptoms, and now you're like, ooh, now we've got one in the United States. And now Ebola is different than COVID in one very important respect. COVID was a respiratory virus. In other words, it's in the air. You sneeze, you breathe, whatever, you can contract it or transmit it. Ebola, you can only transmit it through contact with bodily fluids. In other words, through blood, vomiting, semen, forgive me, but that's the only way. The problem with Ebola, and I'm not trying to be gross, it's just that kind of a deadly disease, is people just start, blood just pours out of their mouth, and it could just splatter all over you. Or they're violently vomiting just out of the blue. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go to the phones. They're lighting up like a Christmas tree. When Mike loads it up, I'm going to go. I just want to play one more quick cut. And I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy on the left. So we had COVID, right, late 2019, especially early 2020. And when President Trump initially said, let's contain this now while it's still in China and not bring in Chinese businessmen or Chinese tourists that fly into our country and prevent it from infecting people here, what did the left say? Racist! He's bigoted against the Chinese! Do you remember that? Oh, and then Nancy Pelosi, she went to Chinatown, and there's nothing wrong. They followed her with the camera. You're a racist and a bigot if you say that this is the China virus, and this is coming from a lab in Wuhan, and it's coming from China. Do you remember that? So keep the borders wide open. Let the flights come in, the planes, the tourists, the business people. And, of course, that's how they brought it here. And people got infected. It got infected all over Europe, all over Canada, Australia, the entire world. Okay? So, but now it's Ebola, which is a lot deadlier than COVID-19. And look, it's 6:32, almost 6:33. I don't even want to describe to you. I asked Mike, I said, Mike, have you gone online and see what happens to people who contract Ebola? And he's like, I really don't. I go, listen, don't. It is harrowing. It is horrifying. I feel so bad for that American missionary doctor. I really do. It's maybe the worst way to die. It's unimaginable. The pain and suffering. It's horrible. It's like a disease from the pit of hell. Seriously. So now it's a different story. Now, listen to this. So again, the deputy director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, she's the Trump administration's point person on dealing with this Ebola outbreak in Central Africa, Heidi Overton. Listen now to what she says. She says, oh no, we're taking precautions. We're not going to let people in from that part of the world. We've got 21-day restrictions. We've got 30-day restrictions. No. Even from I don't care what passport you hold. You can be from Europe. You can be from Canada. You can be from, I don't care where you are. If you've traveled in that area and you want to come into the United States, niet. If you're a non-U.S. passport holder and you come from that part of the world, niet. And even if you're an American and you've been there, you come in here, we're going to give you very vigorous screening. Listen now to Heidi Overton. Roll cut 32B, a mic. 32B, Mike.
For all other Americans, we have issued travel warnings. We have instituted just today entry restrictions for non-U.S. citizens that have been in the region in the past 21 days. So in Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. So very serious measures that have been taken. We are working to communicate very frequently with everyone. Your question was, should Americans be worried? Right now, there are no cases of Ebola in America. We want to keep it that way, and we are doing everything we can to support Americans in the region.
Listen, yes. Hell yes. You don't want this in the United States, no question, okay? But notice now, how come the media, how come the Democrats, where's Bill in Sudbury now? I just want to know. Where is he now? Where's Chris in Gloucester? Where's Ben in North Andover? Where are all these moonbats? Where's Pelosi now? This is racist. This is racist. How dare you prevent these Ugandans and Congolese and South Sudanese and everybody else? If they want to come here, it's their right. Remember they said that during COVID? Suddenly, now, whoa, ho, 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 you want to put restrictions? Go ahead. Hell, they're practically begging them. Please, with a cherry on top. No. Keep them out. Don't let them in. So, now there's a 30-day restriction, period. Okay, up to 30 days. You can't, we don't care who you are, why you want to come to the United States, what your purpose is. We're not letting you in if you're from that part of the world, or over the last 21 days from wherever you know, I don't care where you're from, if you've traveled into those areas. If you were there on business, if you were there for a vacation, if you were there to visit family, if you were there on a humanitarian mission, whatever. You've been to that area, we're not letting you in. Period. Full stop. Now, and I agree, please don't misunderstand me. Yes, I agree with these measures completely. But notice the hypocrisy. So it's not racist now. It was racist when we did it to the Chinese during COVID. But now it's not racist. Have you noticed that? Now, my question to you is this. 617-266-6868. Because I'm going to be brutally honest with you like I'm in the confessional. I see the media going on about this story around the clock. I see the panic porn. I see the World Health Organization. I see the CDC. All the same players that I saw during COVID. And I say to myself, pivotal election. Trump's agenda is on the ballot. They're going to try to impeach and utterly destroy the president. And we've got another possible deadly pandemic on our hands. Like we've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie before. And so the question now is, are they laying the groundwork for someone with Ebola to come into the United States and unleash a possible deadly pandemic, a potential pandemic? I hope it doesn't happen. I pray it doesn't happen, in order to sabotage Trump's reelection, to cause so much panic. And you take one look at somebody who with Ebola, and I'm telling you, it's going to cause panic. It'll make COVID look like a Sunday picnic. And then all of a sudden, they can reimpose their lockdowns, They're going to shut the churches, the businesses. They're going to keep us in our homes. They're going to have to rush for a vaccine. It's going to be the same playbook all over again. And the key, mail-in balloting. Because, my God, you can't vote in person because you may get Ebola. Or Ebola's out there. And that's how you steal the election. They did it before. They did it once. They may do it again. That's my fear. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think, honestly, you would be naive if you didn't think it can't happen again and that these people, the globalists, are not sinister enough, evil enough, nefarious enough to do it again. Because that's how desperate they are to bring Trump down. Am I wrong? 617-266-6868. Vicky in New Hampshire. You're going to kick us off, Vicky. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Vicky.
I believe that Ebola is already contained here in the United States because if I recall correctly, and you can correct me on any of my facts that I may not have straight, under Obama, there was an Ebola outbreak that started in Sierra Leone, if you recall.
Yes.
And they brought a CDC worker back to Chicago to be treated for Ebola. And it's my belief that they took blood samples. I don't really know if that person survived or not, but they would have taken blood samples. The Ebola virus, even if it wasn't brought here by a person to be treated at that time, is probably in labs around the world, and they're doing gain of function. And if it is not brought in by people who have been in the Congo-Uganda area, okay, they're going to cause an outbreak that spread directly from here, is my belief. And in regards to the elections being affected, I think you're possibly right on that. But knowing what we know and how it was conducted the last time, just as they did in this past election where they had lawyers at each state capital when there was news that was cheating was going on, we would have to do the same throughout the U.S. to make sure that things like the mail trucks being what they were in Pennsylvania and loads of letters being dumped and letters or voters' ballots being counted a week after the election. Third world countries have stamp people's hands to make sure that they voted or whatever it is. They get everything counted. We used to have paper ballots, and we have the count in due time. So there are ways to prevent the cheating if we're serious about preventing this.
Oh, I agree. No, look, Vicky, if they try the lockdowns again, if they try the mail-in balloting, if they try the old shenanigans over again, the answer is no. Ebola or no Ebola. I don't care. They're not. We're just not going to let them. We can't let them. In other words, we have to be ready. If they try to exploit this to try to lock the country down, you know, and many of you are texting the Kuhner man and emailing me on this very point, and you're 1,000% correct. Under Obama, I won't forget this, when we had a big Ebola outbreak in Africa again, I think this time it was in Western Africa, and the horrible pictures and the horrible images, I couldn't believe, I was shocked that the dear leader, that then President Barack Hussein Obama, was actually advocating for bringing infected Ebola patients into the United States. Saying, no, we should bring them here and have them treated here. You know, we got the best medical facilities. We're going to bring them here. And I'm like, you want to bring people with that deadly virus where literally the blood is pouring out of their eyes, out of their nose, out of their ears, out of their mouth? They're vomiting blood? Forgive me, it's going through their skin? You want to bring that monstrosity into the United States? And I don't care, hazmat suits, no hazmat suits. That poor doctor, that American doctor, and I said this to Mike, he is a brave, courageous man. I mean, dedicated his life to taking care of poor, sick children in Central Africa, him and his wife. They're Christians, they're missionaries. And they said, look, people are dying of Ebola. They need help. And he said, I'm going to go. And he went to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and he has a hazmat suit on. His wife is also a doctor. She put on a hazmat suit. And they were trying to save lives and treat people in this agony and excruciating pain. And even with the hazmat suit on, somehow, I guess, some blood or fluid or whatever got in and it touched his skin and he contracted it. And now this poor man has been flown into this infectious disease treatment center in Germany. Apparently it's one of the best in the world. And he is fighting for his very life as I speak to you now. You want to bring that into the United States? Are you crazy? And that's, I knew by then he was trying to destroy our country. But that's when I realized this is an evil man. This is an evil man who wants to just wreak, untold havoc and destruction on the American people. And, so my fear is this is what Obama wanted when he was president. Are the Democrats now going to try to exploit this and, God forbid, try to bring Ebola into the United States? Because I'll tell you this, nothing is going to cause more public panic than if there is an Ebola outbreak here. There's no question. And that's why we have to quarantine everybody who comes down with it, and they must be prevented, restricted from coming into our country. Period. Full stop. And, Jeff, it violates their rights. I don't care. You don't have a right to come to our country. You don't. The job of the president is to protect the health, safety, and security of the American people. Period. Full stop. Now, let me just say one last thing, and then I want to go to the phone line. 617-266-6868 is the number. The difference this time around, if they do try to play up a deadly pandemic, to lock us down, to change the voting procedures, to basically rig the election, it's not just you're going to see massive opposition. I think the other problem that they're going to have is, does anybody really now trust the CDC? Does anybody really now trust our quote-unquote public health experts? Because the way they lied to us during COVID, and it wasn't just Fauci. It was Deborah Birx, the scarf queen. You could just go on and on. Now, I trust Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's a straight shooter. So I do have confidence in him. But do I have confidence in the public health bureaucracy? Do I have confidence in the CDC? I don't. You want my honest opinion? I don't. To tell us the truth, to level with us, to not politicize it, I don't have confidence in them. And my question, I personally, I think most Americans won't either. And that's going to be another big problem for them. And so my question to you, among, several others, is, do you trust the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC? Do you trust our public health officials to tell us the truth if, God forbid, there should be an outbreak of Ebola? And let me ask all of you, is President Trump right to put travel restrictions on all non-U.S. citizens who have been into these affected areas? If they've traveled or been to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, South Sudan, that they should be barred from entering our country for up to 30 days. Is he doing the right thing? I say yes. What say you? And the ultimate question, Do you fear that the globalists, led by the World Health Organization, will they try to use Ebola to affect this election like they used COVID-19 to sabotage and impact and steal the 2020 election? Is this going to be COVID-19 2.0? Or do you think this is now just more panic porn and fear-mongering on the part of the media? 617-266-6868. Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. There's definitely no fear here. Before we even get started, God bless the people in those other countries that are going through this. That's absolutely horrible. But thank God Fauci's not, and the CD was in before. We'd already have masks on, and it's not contagious through the air, but he'd have us wearing them anyway. That being said, Mr. Trump and the administration, President Trump, are going to do the right thing for the American people, and that's what these globalists hate, is taking care of the American people, and that's what he's going to do. We're in the 250th year of the United States. God bless America. And guess what? Why don't we have a special election in July 4th week, and move it up just for the special anniversary of the United States? And then we don't have to worry about their shutdowns. We'll be a couple of months ahead of schedule, and everything will work out great. What you say about that,
Jeff? Well, Angelo, look, I got to tell you, if you look at the primaries, obviously on Tuesday and just the last couple of weeks, it's Trump's party. I mean, he is destroying his opponents one by one. It is, what I've called the Rhino Revenge Tour, and they're falling one after another. And I think the big test is going to be this Tuesday. He's endorsed Ken Paxton, the state attorney general, who's a MAGA conservative. I love him. Personally, he was my number one pick to be the attorney general of the United States, but I'll definitely take him as a senator from Texas. And he's going up against Cornyn, who is very close with John Thune. He was very close with Mitch McConnell. He's the consummate rhino Republican, establishment Republican. He's a globalist to his core. And Trump now is saying, no, I want Paxton. He's endorsed Paxton in the primary. And now we're going to see what's going to happen. But he's slowly purging the rhinos out of the Republican Party. Thomas Massie went down in flames. That was a huge defeat for Massie and his people. So Trump took him out as well. So look, he's on a roll. There's no question. And apparently what I'm hearing now through media reports is that they may be very close to a deal with Iran. We shall see. They're in the later phases of a deal. Doesn't mean it's going to be a deal, but they are in negotiations. And Trump has got his fingers crossed, but he thinks they may get something with the Iranians. So if that happens, that means the war will come to an end. And I believe the moment the war comes to an end and the strait is reopened, you're going to see gas prices come down. You're going to see oil come down. You're going to see energy come down. That means inflation is going to start coming down. And then we're going to look very good, very strong going into the midterms. So let's keep our fingers crossed. And I'm just praying that they keep Ebola out of the United States. Because I'll tell you this, the media is playing it up, and they would love to have another deadly pandemic on their hands to instill fear, to instill hysteria, obviously they will blame Trump, and they would destroy the economy. They would lock us down again. And that would just tank the economy the way it did, in 2020 for Trump. And then they'll blame him. And the Democrats will sweep to power that, and they'll have massive voter fraud. You're going to see mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting and ballot trafficking like you've never seen before. So that's why you have to keep an eye out on this Ebola story. And just keep it out, contain it, and quarantine people as much as you can in Germany or in Africa, but don't bring anyone infected with Ebola or even the possibility of being infected with Ebola into the United States. He's got to put the safety and health of the American people first. And we can't have a repeat of COVID. We just can't. Angelo, thank you so much for that call. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
Hey, Jeff. Real quick. The defeat of Bill Cassidy in Louisiana last Saturday. Awesome. That was great. And it's looking good for Ken Paxton in Texas. And I'm looking at it 1 down, 2 to go. Cornyn in Texas and Lindsey Graham in South Carolina is still on my radar screen. So just very shortly, that's how I see all that. Now this whole Ebola thing, the first thing, Jeff, that we've got to establish is when people talk about rights, non-citizens, Jeff, do not have a right to come to the United States. That is a privilege that is granted through our immigration laws and policies. And that's something where we get to set the terms, and certainly concerning any kind of health emergency, certainly the president, through his legitimate executive powers, would get to set the terms for any non-citizens who have been in a part of the world who have been exposed to a dead, dangerous virus. So that has to be understood. And American citizens, on the other hand, would have rights, but that needs to be established. The other thing, Jeff, is we've got to make abundantly clear right now that this time there's going to be zero compromise in regards to civil liberties concerning citizens. And even more importantly, we need to insist on medical freedom. Under no circumstances will we accept the government imposing a medical decision, a vaccine, or any other policy that would in any way violate the bodily autonomy of citizens. That has to be a firm, leak-proof no.
Oh, you're dead on. Oh, Andy, as usual, absolutely dead on. And look, we have to say it way in advance. Don't even think it. If you think you're going to lock us down, the answer is no. If you think you're going to violate our civil liberties, the answer is no. If you're thinking you're going to concoct some other vaccine and rush it to market because, people are, spitting blood or whatever, no. You're not going to lock us down. We're not going to be stuck in our homes. You're not going to force a jab into our body that we don't want to take. And we're not changing the rules for the election. Absolutely not. We have to just tell them the answer is no. And, once they get that message, they're going to be less tempted to allow Ebola to come in. But, look, Andy, this is, to me, I think, how bad it is for our country right now. That we're having a serious conversation in which we would actually contemplate that the Democrats hate Trump and hate America so much that they would be willing to allow one of the most deadliest viruses on earth. It's not just that it kills you, which is bad enough. Okay, what is it? They got like a 75% fatality rate. 75%. That's 3 out of 4. But again, you look at the pictures, I'd rather be tortured. I'm serious. I'd rather be in, I don't know, one of Saddam Hussein's torture cells than have to go through Ebola. I mean, and they're contemplating, potentially allowing that to come in order to create so much panic, so much fear, so they could crash the economy, take away our rights and freedoms, and rig the election. And we're talking about, if this gets in here, you're talking legit millions dead. I mean, really, once this thing breaks out, it is very, very hard to contain. So this is how evil, this is how full of hate, this is how insane and unhinged they've become. So that's why I'm with Trump on this 1,000,000%. You take every precaution. You're absolutely right, Andy. No one has a right to come to the United States. No non-citizen has the right to come. And frankly, even a citizen. I mean, listen, I'm fully for constitutional rights. But, hey, if you've got a deadly virus that you've contracted, it doesn't just mean you can come in and start infecting everybody else. So I'm happy that they've sent that, Dr. Stafford, that Christian missionary American who's been infected in Germany at that world-class treatment center, because I'd rather have him there, frankly, than here. So, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be cold-hearted, but you can't have something like this break out in our country. You just can't. And if you decide to go to Africa and you decide to treat, and it's a noble calling, I'm not putting it down, but that's your decision, and God bless you for it. But you don't have the right to make us pay because you wanted to go to Central Africa and treat people who are very sick. You decided to be a missionary, and those are the risks that come with being a missionary. And I feel very bad for him, his family, his wife, but that doesn't mean he has the right to come here, and by treating him here, potentially getting other Americans infected and them dying. That's not right. That's not fair. Agree, disagree. Andy, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Jeff, thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Bob.
It's funny that, it's not funny, but it set me back when you told me about the Ebola. A good friend of mine is in Africa right now with a church group helping people with different illnesses. I texted him this morning and asked him if he was still there or is he back. So he texted me back and he said, no, I'm coming back on June 11th. So I'm saying to myself, should I say anything to him about this Ebola news? So I did. I texted him back and I told him to check the news and find out what's going on. I don't know if he's aware of it or not, Kind of worries me.
Well, Bob, the other thing, and the WHO has pointed this out, and I'm not a big fan of the World Health Organization, but, even a stop clock is right twice a day. They said, you have to understand, in these countries in Central Africa, they are so poor and they're so economically backward and technologically backward that, we have what's called contact tracing. In other words, we can just as an example, Jeff Kuhner goes to Uganda, not that I ever would, but just, indulge me. And, he was at this place at this time. We noticed an outbreak of Ebola, whatever, a couple of miles away. So they could trace my movements and then, and say, Mr. Kuhner, hold on. No. You're probably fine. But you were in that area at the time when somebody came down with Ebola. We're going to have to quarantine you. So, and that's how you can contain something like this. They don't have that kind of ability. So there are not thousands, but tens and tens of thousands of Africans in that part of the world that probably have gone through those areas, have been exposed to Ebola. We don't know if they've contracted it or not, but, and they have no way of tracing them. And then they can board planes. They can go to other countries. This is the problem. And once and then they get to Europe, or God forbid, they get to here. Okay. I don't know if this is just coincidence, if this is just maybe excessive pre-planning, a little bit of panic, or if they know something that we don't know. But here's the story. This is out of Chicago, out of Chicago, ABC 7. So it's a local affiliate in Chicago. And apparently now, as I said, the World Health Organization is now warning the entire world. They've declared an international public health emergency about a growing Ebola outbreak. And as I've been saying all morning, it is a disease without a vaccine. There is no known vaccine for Ebola. However, so far it has not come into the United States. Fingers crossed it will never enter the United States. But in Chicago, 2 Chicago hospitals have been designated as treatment centers for any possible Ebola cases across the state of Illinois. So apparently, I'm just going by this story, Rush University Medical Center and Lurie Children's Hospital apparently have been designated as, quote unquote, elite special pathogen treatment centers for potential Ebola cases in Illinois. Now, again, to repeat, the outbreak so far has killed 131 people, and that count is going to continue to rise. But not one of these has reached U.S. soil. But I'm asking myself, is this over preparedness? I mean, if we don't even have one case of an American on American soil with Ebola, never mind dying from Ebola, why are there not one, but 2 hospitals already now designated and being prepared as treatment centers for any future Ebola cases? So I'm thinking this can only be door 1 or door 2. There's only 2 choices. Either this is panic porn and over preparation on steroids, or number 2, what do they know that we don't know? That's what I would like to ask. I mean, so far, in fact, my understanding is there hasn't even been a case in Europe, which is much closer to Africa than here in the United States. And we're already getting not 1, but 2 hospitals ready. Like, they're ready. I mean, they're locked and loaded. You get one Ebola patient or whatever, somebody with Ebola, and boom, they are ready. They've got everything ready to go. So I'm like, do you guys just watch too much of the mainstream news, the fake news, with all the stories about Ebola and everybody's panicking over there in Chicago? Or has somebody told you something and you're not letting us in on the secret? So anyway, okay, that's number 1. Number 2, and this is now becoming a huge issue, a big issue, so much so that I kid you not, President Trump has had to intervene. As you know, the United States is going to be hosting the FIFA 2026 World Cup Soccer Championship. I know we love football in the United States and baseball and, other sports, but soccer is the international sport of choice. It is the most popular sport in the world. The FIFA World Cup is the biggest sporting event in history. It's bigger than the Olympics. It's bigger than the Super Bowl, not in America, but I mean around the world. Billions and billions and billions of people watch. So the fact that it's coming to America is a big thing. And by the way, just so that you know, Gillette Stadium, which is a stone's throw away from where the Kuhner man lives, I believe they're hosting, I think, 4 games. Could even be more than that, maybe 5 or 6. I know it's a minimum of 4. And I know one of the games is Scotland versus Haiti, which actually I'm thinking of attending, but the prices are outrageous. Just because, to get to the, feel the atmosphere, experience the feeling of being in a World Cup soccer match, because people say it's just something you've never experienced before. So anyway, but let that go. So it's coming to Boston. It's going to be in Philadelphia. Speaking of Chicago, LA, Houston, and Texas. It's going to be all over in stadiums all across the United States. Now, you may be saying, Jeff, what the hell does this have to do with Ebola? The Democratic Republic of the Congo, their World Cup soccer team qualified for the tournament. In other words, they're going to be coming here in America to play. They're in the tournament. And now the question is, what do we do with them? Should we allow them to come into the United States? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends. So, this is now an issue that has actually gone all the way to President Trump, and he's going to have to make a decision and make a decision soon. So with this Ebola outbreak, clearly now spreading in Central Africa, there's no question about it. The Democratic Republic of Congo, their national soccer team, is scheduled. They've qualified. They are scheduled to play in the FIFA World Cup soccer tournament. In fact, they've got 3 games that they're mandated to play in the first leg of the tournament. 2 are going to be held in the United States. Third is going to be in Mexico. Their first game is against Portugal in Houston, and that's going to be in the middle of June. And then they're going to be playing Kazakhstan in Atlanta later in June. Now, here is the problem. Obviously, the CDC has expressed concern that the team, the Democratic Republic of Congo, they may be infected. And if they're infected, then you're coming into this country. You're going to be playing in front of, I'm talking legit, 80, 90, 100,000 fans. I mean, the crowds at these World Cup soccer games they're mind-blowing. So you're playing in front of that many people. You're going to be on multiple planes. You're going to be going to multiple airports. You're going to be shuttled around to multiple hotels. You're going to be eating at numerous restaurants. And it's not just the team. This is a bit unusual for Americans, but in soccer, especially World Cup soccer, governments pay for fans to follow the team. I know it sounds crazy, but they want, say, 10, 15, 20,000 fans because it's such an outburst of patriotism for countries around the world. So they pay for fans to accompany the team and then watch them play and wave the country's flag or banner in the stands. So you've got thousands and thousands of Congolese fans, from the Congo, that are also scheduled to come into the United States to cheer on their team in the World Cup. You see the problem now. And so the question is, should they be allowed, the team, should they be allowed to participate and play in the World Cup? And B, should their fans be allowed or given a visa to come into the United States in order to cheer their team on in these stadiums that are, packed with 80, 90, 100,000 people? And that's another thing, Mike. I mean, I'm not trying to insult them, but Mike says they're not going to win anyway. They barely qualified. I mean, they're not a good team. I'm not trying to be insulting. Portugal is a great soccer team. They're a very good soccer power. They're going to destroy the Democratic Republic of Congo. To give you an example, they're probably going to lose all 3 games. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. It's not like, this is, I don't know, Brazil or Argentina or France or England or, Germany or Croatia. You know what I'm saying? Like a really world-class soccer power. But, this is Congo, man. You know what I mean? Like, sorry. You're lucky you barely scraped in just to get into the tournament. Anyway, let that go. Now, listen to this. There's a training camp, pre-World Cup training camp. The Congolese national team decided to cancel the portion of their pre-World Cup training camp. This was scheduled to take place this month in the capital of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kinshasa. So they said, no, we can't train in Kinshasa. Well, why can't you train in Kinshasa? They said, their words, it's too dangerous because of the outbreak of Ebola, that the players may contract Ebola, and so we don't want to train in Kinshasa because the virus now is spreading everywhere in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So where do you think they went? Kinshasa, their own country, is too dangerous. So now they're in Europe. So now they're training in Europe. And I'm thinking, what if they're sick or a couple of their players or managers or coaches and you're just going to just let them train in Europe and have them board planes and, stay at hotels and hello? Go to restaurants, like, hello? And so it's too dangerous for them, they say, to train in Congo. So screw Congo, even though they're representing Congo. They're now training in Europe, and then they're going to be coming in about a week to start training here in the United States before they play in the middle of June. And the question now is whether President Trump should be giving them visas and their 10,000 or 15,000 fans that are going to be accompanying them, should they be given visas? Now, what FIFA is now doing, I'm not making this up, because they want the Congo to play. And they say it's a violation of their civil rights if they're prevented from playing in the United States. So FIFA is insisting that they and the fans be given visas to come and either play or cheer them on. So what FIFA is doing is they're coordinating with the State Department, with the CDC, I don't know if you can follow me now, with the Trump administration, agency after agency, bureaucracy after bureaucracy, to make sure that the team and their fans can safely come and stay in the United States. And they say they're going to try to prevent them from having as much contact with the public as possible. So I don't know, they're going to fly them in, I guess, on a specific plane with no one else but them. They're going to put them up at a hotel where they have minimum contact with anyone else. They're going to put them on a shuttle when they're taken to the practice field or to the game where they have as minimal contact as possible. They're going to try to arrange for meals where I guess they're more segregated or, apportioned off from other players or the general public. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is turning into a logistical nightmare. Like is this really worth it? The potential risk, the public health, the exposure to the public health. over them playing 3 soccer games? A team that's one of the worst, that's qualified, that they're not going anywhere in this tournament? And if you look at what happens to people when they contract Ebola, like, why? No. I'm sorry. I know I'm going to get a lot of blowback on this, but I don't think they should be allowed to come into the United States. If you can't play in the Congo, and if you can't even practice in your own capital, but they're going to ship you to Europe and then ship you here, but they got to keep you in a quarantined area because you may or may not pose a risk to the public, yeah, you know what, guys? Just skip the tournament, okay? It's okay. You don't have to play. I know I'm dashing your dreams of playing in the World Cup, but I'm sorry. Public safety and public health takes priority. That's me. I want to hear from you. And it's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. With the Ebola outbreak in the Congo, should the Congolese soccer team be allowed to participate in the World Cup in the United States? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. You can also vote via X. And yes, I was very active on X last night. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in National ER. By the way, it's on almost every major cable news channel as I speak to you now, that the screening for Ebola, major screening for Ebola, is now at all major airports taking place today in the United States. So if you've been anywhere near Central Africa, you're going to be screened aggressively if you're an American citizen. If you're a non-U.S. citizen, they're not going to let you into our country. And that's beginning today because of the Ebola outbreak. So, should the Congolese soccer team be allowed to play in the World Cup? I say no. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Dan.
No.
The connection's not very good. We can barely hear you. Let's see if we can reconnect with Dan. Dan, are you there?
I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Dan, we're going to work on it because every second word, we're not able to hear it. Okay, we're going to go to Debbie. Dan, hang on. We're going to come back to you. We're just going to fix that connection. Debbie in Milton. Thanks for holding, Debbie, and welcome.
Yeah, hi, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi. I will let you know that I had a friend who had to have a thyroid removed this past Monday at one of the major hospitals in Boston. I'm not going to say which one. And she had to have an overnight stay. Come to find out, her the person sharing the room had Ebola. So she was shocked by that. Now, we don't really know how many here have it because we did have open borders at one point, correct? And
sorry, Debbie, I'm sorry. Can you just repeat that? So your friend went to a hospital in Boston. This was recent with a thyroid problem. And who had Ebola?
Nope. She had a roommate. She had to stay overnight. Didn't know she had to.
Okay.
She thought it was going to be in and out patient. Her roommate had Ebola. She couldn't wait to get out of the hospital.
What do you mean, like had Ebola as in she had it years ago, or?
Oh, no.
Had Ebola as in had it at the time when she was there?
They're treating her for Ebola, yes.
Really?
Not my friend. Now, we haven't heard about that on the local news, but you can sure believe if it's in Chicago, it's got to be a lot of other places. But it's not.
Because Debbie, sorry, Debbie, I promised I'll let you finish. No, what they're telling us is there's not a single case of Ebola in the United States. They're telling us that there's no one with Ebola on U.S. soil. Now, are you sure that your friend said Ebola and not, I don't know, COVID, or are you sure she said Ebola?
Absolutely. She's a very high IQ individual, and that is what she was told, and that's why she has a low immune system, so she had to get out of there. And she wouldn't lie to me. I've known her for 35 years.
No. I'm not saying she lied. I mean, Debbie, Ebola, I mean, I'm talking there's blood pouring out of your eyes. There's blood coming out of your skin. You're constantly vomiting. You're vomiting blood. And that was, so did she witness that? Or were there people in hazmat suits around this roommate of hers?
Roommate and the nurse informed her, because she had to inform her, because obviously her well-being was at jeopardy too. So she couldn't wait to get out of there. And I can only believe we've had so many people that poured over the border. There's probably more out there that we're not aware of, but that has not been reported on the local news. And that I was shocked to hear that. And more in fear for her. So she's, obviously been checked out and whatever, but that I'm talking about my friend now. But it's very worrisome, the things that they don't tell us.
Wow.
And not to put fear in everybody, because we shouldn't be fearful, but that's another reason why they should pass the SAVE Act, so that people can get out and vote, or at least, show identification, et cetera, because I think a lot of this was purposely led into the United States through the open borders and through aircraft, too, through flying.
Well, Debbie, one of the things about Ebola, I'm just going by what the public literature is saying, is it's got, first of all, a very high fatality rate. Obviously, most people die from it. But even say you survive and then the symptoms subside. So, you're out of the woods, and some of the more horrific aspects of Ebola are now, you're no longer, bleeding out everywhere, and you're getting better, Apparently, you're still symptomatic. So, you can be symptomatic weeks and weeks after you've had Ebola. So that's why you have to quarantine people for a very long time. And to me, if they allowed, that they didn't report someone with Ebola is to me unconscionable. It's unconscionable. That they allowed your friend to be potentially exposed is unconscionable. And that they just had this person in a room like that, absolutely unconscionable. I mean, heads should roll. Look, I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just being honest with you. Just look at the videos. Don't take my word for it. The last thing you want is Ebola. Holy mackerel. That's the last thing you want. Debbie, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. So who knows? Maybe they are not telling us something in Chicago. Because I just found that story very suspicious. If there's no known cases of Ebola, and by the way, that article that I'm citing says twice, not once, but twice, that there are no known cases of Ebola in America. No one with Ebola that they know of has been reported to have entered U.S. soil. So they're basically saying, look, no one has it. No one that we even think is symptomatic has even come into the United States. And Trump is taking all of these procedures to restrict travel and to put up screening at all major airports. So anybody who's come anywhere near Ebola or in these infected areas is not going to be allowed to come in, period, full stop. And so, they're saying, don't worry. I'm like, well, if there's no one here and no one's come in with it, why do you got two hospitals already, they're ready to go? They've got their treatment centers up and running, and they're just like, they're waiting for the first patient. And I'm like, that's a bit odd. 617. Well, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. You're saying better to be prepared, but they're really prepared. I mean, You know what I mean? It's not that they're saying like, okay, if something should happen, here are the protocols. I mean, they've got treatment centers up and running. And I'm like, why are they up and running? No one's sick. So anyway, maybe I don't know. I don't want to speculate. It's always not good to speculate, but let's put it this way. I'm suspicious. Okay. Or as I like to say, interesting. Very, very interesting. Dan, let's see if we can reconnect with you, Dan, in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks.
Loud and clear. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm suspect too. I mean, let's face it. This makes COVID look like, Little League. And quite honestly, we don't need it. They'll steal an election. They'll do anything. The radical liberal left would invite this like you've never seen before, and quite honestly, capitalize on it and handicap the election. There's no doubt about it. They'll try to steal it. But my thought is here, why can't we simulcast and necessarily, we can let them come in the Congo team, but no one in the stadium. Simulcast. Let everybody watch. The crowd won't be there. There'll be no interaction with, spreading it because it'll just be the two teams. And, that might work, or just not let them in at all. But if it ever took off and ever got bad, I wouldn't let anybody in the stadiums. I'd let the games go on, and there'd be nobody there, and therefore very limited chance of spreading.
Well, Dan, let me ask you, say they allow them in, and one of them, God forbid, has Ebola, or one of their fans, the thousands and thousands of fans that will accompany them, has Ebola. Will we say it was worth it in the interests of fairness and, competition and, non-discrimination? Because, the libs are already up in arms. They're already going on about, you're screening people. How dare you screen people? I'm not kidding. This is becoming a big story. The jock sniffers on ESPN and, on sports TV, sports cable. This is discrimination against the Democratic Republic of, by the way, they couldn't find the Congo on the map. Okay. But anyway, this is discrimination against the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They should be allowed to come in. Their fans should be allowed to come in. Okay. So let them in. And then what happens if people start getting Ebola? Is it worth it? Really, is it worth it? For these, I think they're the worst team in the World Cup. Look, I don't want to get into the details, Dan. Normally, the World Cup had 32 teams. This is the first World Cup where they expanded the number of teams to 48, which, by the way, is letting bad teams get in, okay? The 48th out of the 48th was the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So what I'm telling you is if they didn't expand the format from 32 teams, as it's been done for decades and decades, to now 48, they wouldn't even have qualified for the tournament. So when I say losers, I'm telling you this is a team of soccer losers. Okay? So we're going to put people's lives in jeopardy, stick them in a stadium, bring their fans in here to see them lose 3 straight games and get their asses kicked. For what? So we can show the world that we're not racist. By the way, plenty of black teams are coming. Plenty of African teams are coming. By the way, there's going to be a lot of Africans in the stands watching the game. They're going to get Ebola if these people are infected. It's Africa now that's suffering from Ebola. So I don't know where again, they find racism where none exists. So I don't care if this was a Sweden, okay, or Finland or Norway or Iceland. I don't know how much more white you can get than the people from Iceland. If they have Ebola, I don't want them in the United States. Why? Because I don't want my fellow citizens to get Ebola. And to be more selfish, I don't want to get Ebola. Okay, call me crazy. I don't like to have blood pour out of my eyes and drop dead because I vomited my insides, literally my insides, I have vomited out. If I do go, Dan, I'd like to go quick. I don't want to go like this. But that's me, Dan. So, Dan, would it be worth the risk? That's the question. And God forbid if somebody should be contract Ebola. Will it have been worth it? What say you, Dan?
It's a soccer game, and it's not worth it. Although you're going to have the radical lunatic left scream and yell and kick that they want it. But did they scream, yell, and kick when they allowed COVID to go on and handicap the country? No. They just kept it riding and riding and riding. As far as I'm concerned, they would invite it into this country. But normal, regular thinking people like yourself, me, and all the listeners, we don't want it. The game's not worth it, and don't do it. But if you had to compromise, then you have a stadium, 2 teams with nobody there.
Dan, and, my prediction now, I'm joking, obviously, but I think the Congo is going to win the whole thing if they let him in. Because if I'm on the opposing team, hey, I'm not, exchange of bodily fluids. I'm not bumping into that guy. You know what I mean? I'm not wrestling for that ball. You know what I mean? Just go right on by me. Go ahead. Whoa. Just move right out of their way. If I'm the goaltender and I see them charging down the field with the ball, I'm running away from the net. Go ahead, shoot, score. I don't care. Just don't come anywhere near me. So, who knows? Maybe this is a way for the Congo. They've been saying for decades, when is Africa or a team from Africa ever going to win a World Cup soccer tournament? Because, Africans are very good at soccer, but they just can't seem to put it together as a team. This could be their year. This could be it, where the Congo pulls it off and they win the whole thing. Dan, thank you very, very much for that call. So honestly, to me, if I was, say Team USA, and not that they're scheduled to play, but okay, let's take Portugal. Okay, they're scheduled to play in the first game. I believe it's June 17th, but don't quote me on that. I don't want to play. Why? I don't know if some of them are symptomatic or not. Like, this is soccer, man. We're fighting for the ball. The bodies are hitting each other, colliding each other. People are sweating, perspiring. You want to talk about bodily fluids, and people elbow each other. And believe it or not, there is blood. People hit their noses are hit. They get cuts, whatever. People bleed on the soccer field. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. No. Hey, I don't need this. I need this like I need a hole in the head. 617-266-6868. Gary in Peabody. Thanks for holding, Gary, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Gary.
Hi. I just was reading about Ebola actually starts, it takes 2 to 16 days to incubate. How far are these soccer tournaments? I don't think they should be coming anyways, but there is also a vaccine that we've been using for over 20 years. One of my friends is head of infectious disease at Brigham and Women's, and he knows about this, and they have quarantine rooms. The other caller, there's no way they put someone in a shared room. I absolutely guarantee that. Do I trust the government? No, but there is vaccines. I think everyone coming from that region should have that. What do you think on that?
Okay, my understanding, you're right. For the standard Ebola, there is a vaccine. But my understanding is, because this is a different strain, it's a virulent strain. That's why everybody's panicking. I'm butchering the name. I know I'm going to butcher the name, but it's the Bundibugyo virus, I think. That's how you pronounce it. Anyway, apparently there is no known vaccine. None. In fact, let me give you, I'll just play the cut again and you can just give me your feedback on it, Gary. This is Emery Niati. He's the disaster risk coordinator for the International Federation of the Red Cross. And he's saying, look, the deaths are now piling up. This thing is spreading very fast in Congo, and then it's spreading into Uganda, South Sudan. And he says this is what's dangerous about it. It's a rare strain. It's not the regular or normal strain where they do have a vaccine. This one, there is no known treatment or vaccine. Roll cut 30, Mike.
The situation is getting out of hand. DRC declared their 17th Ebola outbreak on the 15th, and we were talking about 250 suspected cases on the 15th and about 80 deaths. These numbers have doubled up as I'm speaking right now, which makes this outbreak a bit complex, given that definitely it's a rare strain and there is no approved vaccine or treatment whatsoever.
So, Gary, that's why everybody's really worried. Frankly, that's why Trump is worried. And that's why he's taking these really proactive restrictions, health restrictions, travel restrictions. He doesn't want this to come into America. If it's standard Ebola, we can deal with it. It's not pleasant, but we can deal with it. So far, they have no known treatment or no known vaccine. So you get this into the United States, it can do a lot of damage. Gary, final word to you.
No, that's good for clarification, because I know there's 3 different vaccines out now, at least in this country. But I can tell you the protocol in Boston hospitals is they have a special room for it and everything. Like, you are isolated and you are there for a long time, like usually around 45 days if you do have it.
Well, Gary, you're dead on. That's my understanding as well. That's why when Debbie said, no, they put, this Ebola infected patient beside her friend, like a roommate. I'm like, are you sure? Like, are we talking about Ebola? You know what I mean? Or another virus? Or, look, if it's true, we're talking about medical malpractice on a colossal scale. But look, I know they have these protocols in place, and they'd be crazy. Honestly, when you see someone with Ebola, I don't know how you can put them beside anybody. When you see the doctors treating them, it's so sad. But the doctors, Gary, you probably know this better than me. They're covered. They got these hazmat suits. It's like they're in a nuclear, fission reactor. They've got these, huge plastic gloves. They've got the shield on their face. They're covered from head to toe. And you see these poor patients, and the blood is just coming everywhere. And they're in absolute agony. And I'm like, how could you have somebody like that just exposed in a hospital? I don't see it. Certainly not in a first world country. So I agree with you, Gary. I'm sure there's at least a 45-day quarantine isolation period. There has to be. This is one of the most deadly viruses on the face of the earth. Gary, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. Double-barreled question. Should we allow people who have gone to that part of the world or from that part of the world, Central Africa, should we allow them to enter the United States? I say no. Trump is right to impose these travel restrictions or a travel ban, however you want to call it. And now the soccer team, the Democratic Republic of the Congo soccer team, they've qualified for the FIFA World Cup. They've got 2 games scheduled in the United States. It's going to be in front of massive crowds. One in Houston, the other one in Atlanta. They're bringing thousands of their fans from the Congo with them. Okay, lines are jammed. The text line is going nuclear. This is from 617. Jeff, I work at a major Boston hospital, and I can tell you that call from Debbie, although I'm sure she meant well and was being as honest as she possibly could, she must have gotten her information wrong. There are such strict protocols in place regarding not just Ebola, but all kinds of other viruses and illnesses. There is no way that someone with Ebola would be in a room with someone else. So I doubt that that's what, sorry, the text line is going very quick. I doubt that what she said is accurate. Well, that's my sense as well. I think obviously she wasn't lying. She probably heard something from her friend, and maybe the friend said, hey, they could have had Ebola for all they knew, or, but no, I doubt very much. In fact, I think it's practically impossible that you have someone with Ebola in a major hospital in the United States, never mind here in Boston, and they're not being quarantined and isolated immediately. Never mind sticking them with a roommate. I just find that very, very hard to believe. Okay. And this is a really good one as well. Jeff, my concern is country jumpers. People who go out and travel and hit several countries and then come back into the United States and lie about where they were. All it takes is one or two lazy TSA screeners to let someone with Ebola slip in. That's my fear as well. It just takes one. Just one. And then, it starts to spread. Maria in Ludlow. Thanks for holding, Maria, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Maria, it's been a while. Great to hear from you.
How you doing?
Good. Hey, I'm every day I don't have Ebola is a good day.
It's a great day. I have a few points to make, honey, because I just I'm going to put my nursing hat on here for a minute. I'm sure that young lady that called Debbie did not, I believe she probably misheard, or she was told misinformation or whatever. I find it impossible for that patient with Ebola be in the same room with a roommate. I work in the ER, as you know, and only God knows what comes through those doors. And as soon as we find something, that person, it immediately goes into quarantine, like isolation room. I mean, the works. If somebody is admitted to the hospital, that person is not going to be admitted to, like, a roommate, one, and it's going to be on an isolated room with hazmat and all that good jazz. And it's going to be in quarantine for at least 2 months. It's not a little joke here and there. It's like you're not going to be seeing anybody anytime soon. You're going to be seeing people through, all dressed up in costumes, basically. You're going to be alone for a while. And my second point is I find it astonishing that all this time FIFA has only had, 32, 33 teams? Why now all of a sudden this year they want more teams to play? That to me, I smell a Mickey. Because, and I'm going to tell you why. It's going to sound like crazy, conspiracy theorists, whatever it may be, but, the whole antivirus bologna and cheese that people were going crazy of that boat, and Americans just didn't want to deal with it. They're like, no, we're not doing this again. Because to me, it was taking away from the Disney boat exactly what was really happening. It was like a distraction. So to me, I take it as, what else can we, bad people out there, the government, whatever, to scare people? And, World Cup, FIFA is coming. And FIFA might be in it, might not be in it, but why all of a sudden has to have all these extra teams? And why are they crying that it's going to be, discrimination? Well, this is United States, sweet cheeks. We are a country that we are allowed to let in or out whomever we want. And for these people to be crying that, the audacity that they're thinking of putting millions of people at risk, what about their rights? What about public safety? They're not thinking of any of that. It's a soccer team. Stay home. That is like public safety should be number one concern. And the President of the United States, God love him, he needs to say, no, that's a hard no. That's a no, thank you. You want to say we're discriminating?
You know, Maria, can you just hang on? I want to come back to you. All right, to let them come or to not let them come? That is the question. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, their national soccer team, barely qualified for the World Cup, but they did qualify. They have 3 games scheduled in the first round. 2 of them will be played on American cities, on American soil. The first one will be against Portugal, and the Portuguese, as always, are going to have a very, very good team. This is going to be in Houston, Texas. It's going to be Ronaldo is going to be playing, for example. They're looking at 100,000 people showing up in the stands. It's going to be a massive game, huge crowd. Maria, I've got to ask you, you're a nurse, you're a medical professional. Do you think it is worth the risk to allow the team from the Congo and their thousands and thousands of soccer fans that will be coming with them to come into the United States and potentially spread the Ebola virus? What say you?
Absolutely not. They can cry as much as they want, but no, that would be a hard no for me. They should not allow them to come. I find this astonishing that they're crying about, their rights or whatever it is. What about everybody else's rights to be safe and healthy? No. President Trump needs to say that's a hard no. I am sorry, but no. Our other lives matter. Other lives matter. Everybody's lives matter. This is just astonishing that they coming out with this bull crap of their rights and their whatever. What about everybody else's? Absolutely not. It's not worth it. It's a soccer game. As much as I love FIFA and I'm super excited to see Ronaldo and Portugal play, you have no idea, but I don't want them to play against this team. Absolutely not. I don't want nobody's life put in jeopardy. It is not worth it. It is not worth it. They can. Why aren't they training in their own country? Why aren't they doing this stuff in their own country? Because why? Because they're afraid of the whole Ebola thing. Well, how do you feel about sending this team that it was all of a sudden just put in there because only God knows why, because FIFA decided to do so. But these people are going to send these players not knowing if they're contagious or not, plus whoever is going to follow them here, and now thinking about public safety of anybody else's life not being mattered? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If I was Portugal, I would say hard no playing against that team. If I was Trump, hard no of them coming to the United States. Call me whatever you want to call me. But that American lives are important to me. That's my number one priority. Your team coming
amen.
here.
Maria, amen. Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself. And, many of you on the text line are making this point as well, and I agree with you. What rights do they have to come to our country? You have the left saying, well, you're violating their civil rights. What civil rights? What civil rights? Since when does the U.S. Constitution now suddenly apply to people in the Congo or anywhere else? The American Constitution applies to Americans, period, full stop. So what now? Is the left trying to argue that anybody around the world has the inherent human right to come and enter the United States? So what? We have no borders? We have no national sovereignty? We can't say no to anybody coming in? And this is, to me, the classic case. You mean to tell me that if someone has one of the most deadliest, horrific viruses on the face of the earth, believe me, I don't know what's worse than Ebola. I really don't. That we can't say no, to protect our people, to protect public health, security, and by the way, fans that'll be coming in from all over the world. Many of them are coming for a day or two. It's a long trip, but for them, it's a big thing to go to a FIFA World Cup game. So they will fly, say, to Boston. I'm just using Boston, but Houston, Atlanta. They're playing all over the country. they'll come in here. Maria mentioned Ronaldo. Okay, he's a great player. Portugal is going to have a great team. They got a lot of fans who are not just Portuguese. They're just people who love soccer, and so they admire their skill. So people are going to be flying from all over the world to go in and watch one game. And then within a day or two, they're going to be flying back. Now, if there's an outbreak, you're not just talking about infecting Americans. This thing could be spread. It's like COVID. It could be spread all over the world. Because they come here, they get it, then they get on a plane. People on the plane get infected, or potentially they bring it back to their home country. They get infected. This is a madness. So, no, the answer is absolutely not. We are a nation state. We are a sovereign country. We have borders. We decide who comes in and who doesn't. And if you don't like it, too bad. Tough. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. I know it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you have Ebola in your country. And now it's spreading to Uganda and South Sudan. And I get it. But sometimes, life is not fair. I don't know what else to say. But your rights don't supersede my rights, and they certainly don't supersede the rights of the American public to be safe and to be protected from a deadly virus. No, the answer is no. Maria, I'm with you all the way. And I really hope look, he's done great on preventing people from coming in and on putting the screening in place at all the major airports and restricting all non-U.S. passport holders from coming in who've been to that area or traveled to that area or come from that area. I do think he's got to take one more step. I think he's got to pick up the phone and tell FIFA, listen, I can call him or you can call him. But the Democratic Republic of Congo, that's going to be 3 L's for them. Loss, loss, loss. You guys are not playing in the World Cup. In the first round, you play 3 games. So I'm sorry. It's going to be an automatic loss. And guys, I'm sorry, man. That's just that's how the cookie crumbles. 617-266-6868. But they're not going to be allowed to come in, and their fans from the Congo are not going to be allowed to come in. Mark in Bedford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome. Mark? Did we lose Mark? All right, let's see if we can reconnect with Mark. Raymond in Milton. Thanks for holding, Raymond, and welcome.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does anyone know if Dr. Fauci is tuned in on this? Because he's an expert, I thought you'd like that one. I just wanted to have a laugh with you.
Can you imagine if they brought him back for this? Can you imagine, Raymond? And then this guy would... can you imagine if he was in control of this? I mean, seriously. Oh, him and Biden, we bring them all back in, Raymond, buddy, should we allow these people in? What do you say?
Oh, are you kidding me? That's suicide.
Raymond, I mean, listen, I've had shingles. I had COVID, obviously, but man, oh man, you don't want to get Ebola. Oh, you trust me on this. No one wants to get Ebola. Raymond, dynamite call. Really dynamite call. Can you imagine if Fauci was... Oh, he'd say, let him in. Of course he'd say, let him in. He'd say, no. You should have him as your roommate. Brian in Hanover. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Yes. Well, I used to be a military scientist in Watertown, out of AMRAC, and it was a spin-off of Natick Labs. And there was a bio building next to the chemistry building. That was chemistry. Okay. Talk about Ebola. They actually had that in there, okay, as part of the genetic research, creating biological weapons. So I get a tour of the base, right? And this is what was said to me. This is why I know the government lies to you. This is what they said. They said, you can't go in that bio building. I had top secret clearance. You can't go in that bio building, not because we're doing anything like biological weapons, because we would never do anything like that. Okay? It's because you don't have the security clearance. Okay? No, absolutely not. Ebola is very contagious and very deadly. 90% death rate is usually the thing. At least that was in the 80s. But no, stupidity is unfortunately the coin of the realm these days. How could you even think about letting anyone in that might have it? Forget about having it, but just might have it. I mean, and it spreads very quickly.
You nailed it. Brian, you hit the nail right on the head. Ebola was originally, it's a bioweapon. It's a biological weapon. And when you watch it and you see what it does, it's extremely contagious. It's deadly. It's one of the most deadly viruses on the face of the earth. And I agree with Brian. Forget having it. When you see the effects of this on people, even the possibility that somebody might have it, for the sake of the public, if you're any kind of a human being with a soul, and you care about other people in any way, shape, or form, no, dude, I'm sorry. The answer is no. We're not letting you in. To me, this is just common sense. Okay, we're going to go to Mags in New Hampshire, but just before I do, super quick, I want to ask all of you this. There is an Ebola outbreak. Thank the Lord it's in Central Africa, not in the United States, although I feel very bad for the people of Central Africa, obviously. I wish there was no Ebola outbreak, but thank the Lord it hasn't hit our country. But God forbid, say it should come into the United States. Okay, let's just first somebody gets in, whatever, the screening process is not rigorous enough, or a TSA screener is maybe just too lazy and doesn't check, and somebody traveled there or comes from there and they just let them in, and now they have Ebola and it starts to transmit and you have people dying and it's spreading and it's starting to spread quickly and it's going from city to city, hospital to hospital. Are you more confident now that Trump will aggressively stamp it out and contain it and deal with it than he did with COVID-19 with Fauci in 2020? Whereby you had Fauci in power, the media deified him and said basically he was the head of infectious diseases. He should be the one that quarterbacks the response. He should be deciding policies such as lockdowns, mask mandates, social distancing, vaccine and vaccine approval. Now there is no Fauci. There's no one like Fauci. There's no one in a position where, I am science. So you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary. He would be the point person now leading this. I think Trump, having been badly burned by Fauci and been burned by the so-called public health bureaucracy and what happened to him during COVID, I don't think he would ever cede the reins of his presidency again to an unelected, unaccountable bureaucrat like a Chicken Little. Do you feel confident that this go around, if there was a deadly pandemic, okay? I'm not saying there will be, but just for the sake of a discussion, if there was a deadly pandemic, do you have confidence that Fauci not being there and with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. overseeing the CDC and overseeing the response along with President Trump, that they would do a much more better job and a much more honest job in telling us what's really going on and being able to confront, contain, and eventually stamp out any kind of a deadly pandemic. I'm just curious. How high is your confidence if there was to be a deadly pandemic? In the CDC? In the public health bureaucracy? The public health so-called experts? But especially with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. As the head of Health and Human Services Secretary, and President Trump now, it won't be his first rodeo when it comes to dealing with a pandemic. I'm just curious. Would they handle it better, in your view, and more effectively? 617-266-6868. Do you have trust and confidence in Trump and Robert F. Kennedy, RFK Jr., that they would do a better job than, say, Fauci did during COVID? 617-266-6868. Honestly, to me, it's night and day. I think Trump would handle it better, personally. I think RFK Jr. would be the right man to deal with the pandemic, God forbid if there was one. He wouldn't give the keys to Big Pharma. He wouldn't hand the keys over to, people like Fauci or these so-called public health experts. He would be much more honest, much more transparent. We would know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What we do know, what we don't know. And I think he'd be much more proactive and also much more respectful of our civil rights and our civil liberties. I think the response would be night and day compared to what happened under COVID-19. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Mags in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mags, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Good to talk to you.
Mags, great to hear from you.
Hey, so this is the thing. I trust RFK and Trump. Don't trust the CDC at all. And I don't trust other government officials. And in my opinion, I'm like with Maria from Ludlow. No, absolutely not. Why are we even talking about this? Okay? It should be already, if there's any cases in any countries, they should already be told you're not coming to America. You're not coming to the USA, period. Why would they want to even take a chance of putting us in danger? I really don't understand that. Ebola is really, really bad. There's no coming back from it. Everybody knows that. I mean, not everybody, but people that are educated at all know that. And I just don't understand why this is even coming up and they haven't been shut off already and shut down. I'm sorry, FIFA. The people of our country are more important than a soccer game. I'm a big soccer player and a big soccer fan, Jeff. But in my opinion, the people of our country are more important. We've been shafted enough the last 6 years that we don't deserve that. Okay? We don't deserve to have to even be thinking about it or dealing with it at all. Period.
Mags, I agree with you 1,000,000%. Not 1,000%, 1,000,000%. And Mags, I think the question that has to be asked, the World Cup is big money. I mean, it's big money. And FIFA is greedy. I mean, disgustingly greedy. And they've had corruption scandal after corruption scandal. Anyway, I don't want to get into the weeds on that. But that's why, by the way, they expanded the format from 32 teams to 48, just to have more games. And, more games, more stadiums being filled, more money, more TV ad revenue, the whole bit. Even though, by the way, the more teams you have, you dilute the quality of the competition because you have teams that really shouldn't be there. They're just not that good. No offense, like the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They're just not that good, period, full stop. My question to you is this, Mags. What we saw in the first quote-unquote pandemic, okay, that plandemic, as I call it, under COVID-19, was that what really drove the response wasn't science. It wasn't what's best for our health. It wasn't medicine. It wasn't real health expertise. It was money. It was big money. It was big pharma in particular, and Fauci and gain-of-function research and trying to cover his you-know-what, his rear end. But so much of it was done to maximize the profits of some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world who have bought our politicians lock, stock, and barrel. FIFA has a lot of money, and they lobbied the United States, Canada, and Mexico hard for this tournament. And they've bought off a lot of politicians to make it happen. They want the Congo in. They want more teams from Africa. They want more teams from the third world because they think it's going to be, that's the future of soccer. So they're the ones that are aggressively pushing for the CIS soccer team to come and play. And money talks. And so my question to you is this. Are we going to see again where we bend the knee to the big donors, to the billionaires, to powerful, wealthy interests like FIFA at the expense of the safety and health of ordinary Americans? Because I look at this and I'm like, I don't want to go down. I don't want to come to this conclusion, Max. But this is like COVID 2.0. And the big money wanted COVID here. It came. And the big money now wants the Democratic Republic of Congo and Ebola potentially here as well. And look, let me just say one other thing, and I promise I'll hand it over to you, Mags. You know, one of the people driving all this is Bill Gates. Again, like with COVID. Bill Gates is on record as championing population control. You want population control. You allow Ebola to break out all over the world. Because that is a deadly, deadly virus. The fatality rate on that is through the roof. It's 75, 80%. So if you want to start killing a lot of human beings, then you just unleash Ebola. And they have this new strain that doesn't have a vaccine or even any treatment. So Bill Gates is lobbying for this stupid soccer team to be allowed to compete and come into the United States. Is big money going to win again, Mags?
Jeff?
Yes.
I'm going to say something. It's only if the criminals are allowed to make the decision. The criminals, okay, in our country. If Trump, who knows what the right thing is to do, okay, and doesn't walk in the same way that everybody else does, he'll put his foot down and he'll say, no, they're not coming. I've made the decision. It's final. If there are anyone, any country, if there's any touch of it, anywhere, these countries are shut off and are not allowed to come here, period. You know what, Jeff? Something that you said, and I just want to say one more thing. I drive, basically, I'm in sales and I drive for a living. I'm on the road 10, 12 hours a day. And I'm going to tell you that people in this country are waking up, because you want to know what the signs that I am seeing now are saying? Simply greed. That's it. And that's what's wrong with America right now is greedy criminals that all they care about is themselves. Well, guess what? There are many of us that care about this whole country, and I believe that Trump and and RFK are two of those people also. So God bless America, God bless you, and keep Ebola out of our country.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen, Mags. Eric in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Eric, and welcome.
I called Jeff several points. Mags, Marie, Mark on the spot, many of your callers. Kuhner files. You need to cross-check and follow up on all your programs. September of 2014, Obama, Ebola. Now, this is Obama 2.0 Ebola. Fauci, okay? Why isn't The View saying, where's Fauci in the media, in the late-night talk show hosts, okay? Where is No, in the schools, okay, in Quincy, Massachusetts. They're looking for sponsorships through the students to ask their parents to have countries for FIFA fans live in their homes while this event is going on. Jeff?
Eric, you're on a roll. Keep going, my friend.
So this is okay. You can think about extraterrestrial, existential threat. The movie E.T. Okay, that was hazmat suit over the house. So we know this, and this is incredible. It's suicidal, and this has been going on in my neck of the woods for a quarter of a century here in Massachusetts, America's hometown. I spoke with you on Turkey Hill in Cohasset regarding it was DSS, DCF, and I segued into something, okay, and then, whoa.
Eric, you're kind of breaking up on us. The phone connection is not very good. But no, listen, you're completely right. Look, you're talking about a virus, okay, just objectively, that to treat it, the healthcare professionals have to be in a hazmat suit. A hazmat suit. I don't want to repeat myself, but like you see in going into a nuclear reactor, covered from head to toe. You can barely see the person's face. It's inside like a shield, a helmet. So this is how dangerous this virus is. And we're seriously having a debate, and actually a real debate, about whether this team should be allowed to compete in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And to go, and by the way, they don't just compete. They go to hotels, they go to restaurants, they're put on buses, they're put on planes, they go everywhere. And their fans follow them. And they come from those very places or some of them, that are actually infected right now. And we're just gonna, what? Well, have you been there recently? And there's certain provinces in the Congo that have been really badly hit. So they're going to say, are you from that province, or have you been to that province? Well, what if they have and they lie? People lie all the time on forms. So that's what we're going to base our security on? Is the goodwill and honesty of people who, by the way, are soccer fanatics? Who, if you know anything about soccer, it's an obsession. It's not a sport. Who, many people, it's a dream for them to go to one FIFA match, World Cup soccer match. It's the dream of a lifetime. So you get to follow your team to see them play Portugal, whoever. Yeah, I'm talking about the fans of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And I'm going to tell them the truth, that I was in that area or in that zone, and they're going to turn me away? No, they're going to lie. Of course they're going to lie. They're going to lie because they want to see their team play, and this is a dream come true for them. So what I'm saying is so that's why we shouldn't be relying on their honesty or on, their goodwill. Absolutely not. On a trust system. No. You don't play, and the fans don't come, and you don't have a right to come into the United States. No one has the right to come into the United States, but especially if you could potentially harm or kill countless Americans. And I think Trump now has to put this red line. He's got to say no. He's got to put his foot down. And if FIFA wants to get the 49th team, the team that the Congo beat, you want to put them in, that's fine. Or you just forfeit the 3 games that they're scheduled to play. That's it. They just don't play. They forfeit them. And it's 3 automatic. No one gets favored because the other 3 teams in the group all get an automatic win. So we'll just keep on playing then. But this has got to be a no. The fact that we're even debating and discussing this is, to me, incredible. Really, it's incredible. Like what? Do liberals have a death wish? That's what I want to know. I mean, like, do you have this need for suicide or something? You all want to die? Diane in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Diane, and welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Diane.
I remember the last time that there was a case of Ebola here. I wasn't able to listen for the last hour because I was at work, but so I'm just jumping in here. I'm not sure if anyone mentioned this, but that case that came here, there was, it was quickly isolated, and the nurse that cared for that person also got it. Remember? And they were in hazmat suits, and they had to clean it all up. But regardless of that, way back years ago, there was a list that came out, and they had a list of viruses that they were planning to manipulate, and they want them to be more virulent. They want them to be more terrifying and scary, yes, to use to keep people locked down. So they can lock people down, especially for elections. So we know that there was a list. And also, that lab that was in California, that they found all those dead mice infected with COVID-19, and then they had vials of Ebola was one of them. All kinds of deadly pathogens. The lab that was supposedly condemned, like it was, the building looked empty, but they found the fire hose outside. So when they went in, they found all that. And then you heard about it a little bit in the news, and then you never heard anything again. And then like a year later, we found out about those Chinese nationals that were arrested at the airport for trying to transport deadly pathogens or whatever they were. I don't remember what they were, but they had those pathogens at the airport. So if they want to bring it here, there are ways they could try, but it doesn't spread the way they would like it to. But who knows what this latest version is of it, because they may have made it.
Well, you nailed it. Look, there's no cure. There's no treatment. There's no vaccine. Up to now, there's no cure. This latest, as you put it, virulent strain. And I think, Diane, you've put your finger on it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me throw, by the way, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Let me throw this very quick log on the fire because I want to go to Brian in Holbrook. God forbid, again, we have a pandemic, another one, a deadly pandemic, an Ebola outbreak. Again, there's no evidence that anyone's been infected in the United States or that anyone has Ebola, and hopefully that'll stay. That won't change. That'll stay. It'll stay the same. But just for the sake of discussion, would we be locked down again? In other words, if we were to face another deadly outbreak, a pandemic, would the response from our elites, and I don't mean President Trump or RFK Jr., because I know they wouldn't, but say from Maura Healey in Massachusetts, from Gavin Newsom in California, from Pritzker in Illinois, or Kathy Hochul in New York State. In other words, would Democrats and liberals suspend our civil liberties and our civil rights again? Would they lock down their economies, shut businesses down, close down churches, close down schools, and force the kids back to online learning? Would they impose ridiculous mask mandates or, everything that they did during COVID-19, even preventing people or discouraging people from even leaving their homes? Would they try to do everything in their power to control us and lock us down and violate our civil liberties using Ebola as the excuse, just as they used COVID as the excuse the first time around? Or do you think that the public would rise up, revolt, and reject them? I'm just curious. what do you think the response from the public would be? And what do you think the reaction and response from especially Democrat liberal elites would be? Would we see another round of lockdowns? A repeat of 2020 and 2021? 617-266-6868 is the number. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ.
Democrats are going to push forward to try to stop the election and get the mail-in ballots in. You mentioned much earlier the fact, what is it, door number one, door number two, door number three, as to why these hospitals right now are geared up and locked and loaded to take in victims, because that's what they are. And that's what they were during the outbreak of the last virus. All this is it's money making. It's money making. If you remember, when people are dying in car accidents, who are they marking it off as? You know, the ventilators. It's all about money. These aren't the only two hospitals that are going to be doing this. You're going to see every major hospital and every major city doing this, and they will push the panic porn to the hilt in order to get people into these hospitals. People with a cough or a sneeze will be going into these hospitals getting checked up, because all it ever was with the healthcare system is money. And these hospitals and doctors especially have promoted this to a point where they have at least been shown in part during the last pandemic to be guilty of crimes against humanity. And as I said 6 years ago, there will never be penalties for Fauci or anyone else, because the people who are actually funding the gain of function research in Wuhan were the American people, were the American taxpayer. It didn't raise alarms when the government said, well, you can't take any legal action against these pharmaceutical companies if you're injured or you're killed if you take this medication. That was the first red flag. The second red flag was it takes an average of 11 years of research to approve a vaccine. They did this one in 6 months. Everyone in this system is putting a vaccine on the market because it's money. It is money. You know, Jeff, this disease isn't easy to catch. The only way you can catch this disease is through bodily fluids. And this disease has been around since 1976. And they are going to blow this so far out of proportion, you're not going to believe what's going to happen. These hospitals are looking for money. They want to set up these special centers so these people can go in. You know, like my dad used to say, the American people are so gullible. If they were selling hospital sandwiches on a Saturday night, they'd be waiting in line to eat them. And that's what this is all about, Jeff. That's why they gave out free vaccines during COVID. How many people would have paid for it? Look, Jeff, I know a number of people who were sickened and died from that last vaccine, and I can tell you right now that the American people should not tolerate.
Oh, I agree. Look, they shouldn't tolerate anything that the medical establishment tries to impose on us. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can text the Kuhner Man 70470. 70470. This is from 781. And I got to tell you, that's exactly what I was thinking. And here's what 781 writes. Jeff, as soon as I heard Ebola epidemic, I said to myself, just in time for the midterms. The Democrats lost a lot due to redistricting. It's on again, Jeff. That's you read my mind. The moment I started, it's been a couple days now, I'm like, Ebola, everywhere, round the clock, Ebola. Doesn't matter where you go. Print media, TV media, it does everywhere. Cable, it's just Ebola. I'm like, okay. So they get shellacked in redistricting, and Trump may be winding down the war with Iran, which means gas prices will start coming down. And here we go. Big election. They want to impeach and drive him from power. And here it is, just in time, another deadly so-called pandemic. You know, and the missed assassination attempt a couple of weeks ago. You're completely right, Mike. So they're working overtime to try to get rid of Trump. There's no question. And do I think Wu would lock us down in Boston? You better believe it. Would Healy lock us down? She wouldn't even blink an eye. She would do it without blinking an eye. You would see. Would Newsom do it? You better believe it. Would Mamdani do it in New York City? Of course. Hochul? Yep. I could run down the list. Not because it's good, not because it's good public policy, but that's how you destroy the economy. You just shut the economy down. And then you shut down the schools. Then you shut down the businesses. You shut down churches. Then you ramp up the panic porn. You've got everybody in masks again. And then you're desperately searching for a vaccine for this new strain. I mean, it's the same playbook. And then before you know it, everybody's got to vote from home. It's all mail-in balloting. And then it's goodbye, President Trump. Suddenly, it's just votes are coming out of nowhere. 617-266-6868. Brian in Holbrook. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
I couldn't agree with you more. In 2007, the Ebola virus developed a new variant. This is the particular variant that they're talking about right now. Here's my problem. I am retired. I spent years watching and studying virology and genetics. Two of the worst things that we ever came up with to mix together was artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. Now, they say that this particular strain is not airborne. I have consulted with artificial intelligence for as long as it's been around. And my latest conversation with AI was yesterday. And it was almost as if it didn't want to address what I was asking it. Here's what I'm saying. I don't want to cause any panic at all. But by using genetic engineering, the technique is called CRISPR. It stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats. What that is it's a way in which they can, in the lab, use genetic engineering to modify any variant of any virus.
Well, Brian, that's my concern. That's exactly my concern. And I think that's what we've never gotten to the bottom of regarding what Fauci did and the National Institutes for Health and how they were secretly funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan. And then we found out, because it's exactly what your point, it's genetic engineering. It's genetic engineering. And then we find out they were funding, hundreds of biolabs across the world, many of them in Ukraine. We never got to the bottom of that. I mean, this is all indisputable. And Ebola was originally, it's a bioweapon. And to me, it's very easy to take something like that, juice it up, as you put it, genetically modify it. And now with the power of AI, my God, you can create a monster virus. No treatment, no therapeutics, no vaccine, no cure. I mean, you can create practically the perfect killing machine. And that's what these sickos are doing and researching on. And, you don't even have to take the most sinister or cynical view of it. It's dangerous whether they want to deliberately release it or not. Just the fact that you're performing this research, what if it just accidentally gets out? It's a genuine leak. We didn't mean to. We were just doing this research, and then it got out. Well, then what? Then what? That's why it's banned in the United States. That's why this kind of research is banned. And by the way, in most civilized countries, it's banned. And especially in a major population center. That makes it even worse. So there you are. It's not happening, but I'm just saying, you're in Boston or New York or LA or take your pick, and you're conducting this kind of research nearby, and it just accidentally wasn't intentional. They're just trying to, experiment with viruses and genetically alter them, and you just accidentally let it out. Well, now what? Now people are infected. Now they're spreading it. Now it's out of control. Now people are dying. Well, what do you do? Now it's too late. That's why you don't play with this stuff. And to me, the worst part is the lack of transparency. That to this day, what are we now, 6 years out from COVID? Forget justice. Okay, leave aside justice, that Fauci should be held accountable for his crimes against humanity. We don't know the whole truth, not even close to the whole truth. We're the taxpayers. We're the owners. That's our money, by the way, that they used. We're the owners of this country. So where was this exactly being funded? Not just in Wuhan, but where else? How much more of our money is being used? What exactly are we working on? And why do we feel the need to work on this? Because this potentially imperils humanity. Now, I'm not saying Ebola is going to kill millions of people. They're trying to contain it. They're trying to quarantine it. I hope they succeed. But what I'm saying is, why do we keep playing around? I was going to say F around, but play around with these deadly super viruses. And by the way, that's Rand Paul's point. And on this, he's completely correct. And at a minimum, if you're going to be doing it, the public should know. Instead, it's in the dark. It's in the shadows. We know nothing. And now these viruses are popping up again, and they're trying to scare the hell out of us. And in the end, why? And I believe it's to control us and take away our civil liberties. I think there's no question. Janice in Melrose. Thanks for holding, Janice, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. You asked, what you thought the response would be in the future from our leaders, and you said Fauci was an infectious disease expert. I don't think he was. I think he was a researcher, and he was not a public health policy expert. But you know who is the CDC director, and I can't say his name, Jay, who was a Stanford doctor.
Bhattacharya.
Yeah. Okay. But I didn't realize he's only the acting CDC director, and I don't know who this woman is who Trump has nominated. But I'll just call him Jay. He was the one who wrote the Great Barrington letter, who said that we should get the kids back in school, that we shouldn't have these massive and so that's his expertise, is in public health policy, and I don't know when he's leaving. But then as far as the FDA, I don't know what's going on there, because Kennedy had come up with the new recommendations for childhood vaccines, and they just reversed it. So that tells me that there are people, hangovers in the FDA, who seem to be running things right now. And then Marty McCary just resigned, so I don't know who's in control of the FDA now. But it doesn't look good. And I don't know who Trump's new replacement is for the CDC, and I don't know when she'll get nominated. But if Jay from Stanford is there for a while.
Yeah, no, he's very good. He's excellent. That's another reason why I have he was very honest and spot on during the whole, COVID crisis, whatever you want to call it, the whole time during COVID. So that's why I'm confident in parts of the team. Okay, a lot of you are now texting the Kuhner man, Jeff. Whoa. Could you give us a little bit more information on what you said just before heading out of the break? Heading into the break, heading out of the last segment. So I'm just giving you the absolute latest. So an Air France plane was scheduled to land in Michigan. However, this was last night. Someone on the flight crew, I don't know who, but somebody suspected that a passenger on board may have Ebola. It's not been confirmed, but there's suspicion, or they're suspecting, that a passenger may have Ebola. I think there was probably vomiting, or a lot of vomiting with some blood or something. So anyway, they looked at that and they said, whoa, the plane was refused rights to land, and the plane had to be then redirected, and it landed in Canada. And now they have to quarantine people on that plane and test people to see if it is Ebola, and is it just that single passenger, or has it now spread to other passengers? So the point being, already now you're starting to see people on high alert and planes being redirected. And I think this is just the beginning. I don't think this is going to be a one-off. 617-266-6868. So, no. Should the Republic of Congo soccer team come to the United States? No. Should their fans be allowed to come and cheer them on? No. Should anybody from that region be allowed to come for a while? No. Should people who've traveled to that region or been in contact with people in that region, should they be allowed to enter the United States? No. I'm with Trump on this 1,000%. Mike in Saugus. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff, for taking my call.
My pleasure, Mike.
I just don't agree with you 100%, 1,000%. They don't need to come from any country that has any kind of Ebola or whatever it may be. It's just the way it is. We're tired of being the dumping ground of other countries in their situations. And I have no confidence in New York, L.A., Boston, with the rotten politicians that we have here, that they won't try to shut things down again. And they will go up against Trump and try to make the media think and the people think that Trump is not doing right.
Mike, are you worried that we may be on the brink of a potential deadly outbreak in America?
I don't think so, because thank God Donald Trump is in office, and people better get out and vote in the midterms like they never voted before, because if it goes back to the Democrats in the House, they will block him from everything that he wants to get accomplished in the next 2 years.
Mike, thank you very much for that call. That's why Trump is trying to prevent this and contain it now. And I'm with him all the way. All the way. Mel in Saratoga. Mel, it's great to hear from you. Mel? Okay. Mel, I think we lost you there, Mel. Try to call back, Mel. All right. Brian let's go to Fred in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Fred, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Fred.
That's really, you earlier mentioned the whole thing about they're going to try to pull this again, with the Ebola, with the COVID.
Yes.
They got to try to pull a blueprint duplicate,
COVID 2.0 or COVID Redux. Or COVID the sequel. As I said on X last night, we've seen this movie before. So let's call it COVID the sequel. Go ahead, Fred.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, The only way to prevent them from doing it again is to go back and reopen up the entire COVID scenario, the whole plan from A to Z, what they did, who's responsible, and this time, put an independent panel in there, not necessarily conservatives or liberals, but an independent panel that will sit there and give them that, an honest breakdown and disclosure as to what happened, blow by blow, move by move, as to what they did. Because if people are suspicious already, but if they know if any little fraction of truth to come out and back it up, then I think everybody's going to be on high alert as to anything that these people even say. They're going to believe in the time of day, never mind anything else.
I agree. I completely agree. And Fred, I think one of the reasons why, you're completely right. I think one of the reasons why they're so resistant is that if the American people find out what really happened, the true horrors, people are going to go to jail. I mean, people are going to go to jail for a long time. And that's why they're trying to cover the whole thing up. And so far, I have to give the devil his due. They've succeeded. I mean, how much longer? We'll see. But so far, they've succeeded. Fred, thank you for that call. Brian, I can't squeeze Brian in. I mean, Mike, this is, Mike, you act like it's your time. Like you're paying for the time. You know what I'm saying, Mike? No, really. I had no idea that Mike Jones actually owned the show. The way you're like, oh, we have no time, Jeff. I'm like, you're acting like it's your time. It's on your dime.